start the recording. Should we get started?
Sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let me see here. Hold on just a second. Sorry, Joe, do we have Bo on? Nope, still 8 participants.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm looking for him though. We have Dan Herron joined us.
There's Dan.
Get Dan in here. Oops.
Tamara's here as well. Very good. Hello, Dan. Good to see you.
Hey, Dan. Hi, Tamara.
Hi, all. I will mostly be listening into this meeting, just snooping.
We know that you're usually there keeping us on the straight and narrow, Tamara. So thanks for being here.
And you're
Yeah,
the best snoop I know, so I appreciate all your input that you provide us. So
All right, guys, we know that Bo is on his way, but we'll go ahead and get started. So I'll call this meeting to order and begin with a roll call.
Oh, that's another missing person. Nicole's not here. Okay.
Well, I guess.
I'll do it again.
We'll go ahead and call the roll here. Chair Short.
I'm here.
Okay. We know Bo's coming in last. Director Roberts.
Here.
Director Altman.
Here.
Director Starkey.
I'm here.
And Director Smith is trying to get, is that him?
It's getting in.
Oh, okay, Nicole's joined us, so that's good.
Oh, there's Nicole.
Okay, I'm off secretarial duty when.
Yeah, right.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey,
Am I still
Nicole.
here?
Yeah, welcome, you made it. All right, we were just
Where's my
very
thing at?
poorly calling the roll, so we missed you badly on that. I think we got through everyone. Director Smith.
I can't see anything.
You can hear us though, Nicole?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so we just did roll. Short, Altman, Starkey, Roberts are all here, and Bo Smith is not tuned in yet, although we expect him to any minute. So if you could reflect that on the record, and we will go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I see Ray Altman has a flag in its background, so we will use that at this time for the pledge. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of
republic
the United
for which it
States of
stands,
America.
one nation under
There is
God,
one nation,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible,
and
with
justice for
liberty
all.
and justice for all.
Okay, at this time on our agenda, we have public comment. Is there any public comment to be had?
We have received no public comment through the county's portal for that.
I see no hands raised. Nicole, if you would reflect that is present as well, I would appreciate that. Moving on to our consent calendar, we have adopt resolution 2020-21-09, authorizing application to Caltrans for RCTA's fiscal year 2021 allocation of LC top funds for RCT's electric bus pilot program. And 4B, adopt resolution 2020-21-10, authorizing fiscal year 2021 Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 and 5311F funding for RCTA and authorizing the general manager to execute all grant funding documents. And last on the consent is 4C, adopting resolution 2020-21-11, accepting CCR SSA, I think we're calling that Rcta Federal Economic Security Funding for RCTA and authorizing the general manager to execute all grant funding documents. Do we
A
have
motion to approve the consent agenda items.
we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We hear a second from Mr. Smith. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Not seeing any public comment. Nicole, would you poll the vote? And I don't see Nicole. Well, she's not on my screen. That doesn't mean she's not there. Nicole, are you there? There she is.
Can you hear me?
Now that I move my screen around. Yes, I'm sorry. It disappeared off my screen. If you could pull the vote for the consent calendar, please.
Okay, I think it's still here. Sorry, my phone is being crazy. Okay. Director Starkey,
Yes.
Director Altman,
Yes.
Director Roberts,
Vidette, you're still muted if you need to unmute.
wait. Okay, Director Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Short.
Yes. And one last try, Vidette,
Okay.
can you unmute and
What? You're there.
I see her on the screen, but she's muted and I don't know.
Yeah.
She has got to hang up on her computer. There she,
Hi, I'm back.
Hey.
Sorry.
There she is.
there she is.
You'll have to recap for me. I had somebody here that needed some emergency stuff, so,
Oh, sorry about that. Hopefully everything's okay.
sorry. Yeah,
We were just taking up the consent calendar. We had a motion and a second, no public comment, and we were just doing the roll for approval of the consent calendar.
okay, no problem. I approve.
Okay, so there you have it. Nicole, you caught that?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, moving on to item 5, approval of the minutes of the March 2nd and April 6th RCTA board minutes.
So moved.
I second it.
Motion by Starkey, seconded by Roberts. Is there, this is just the minutes. I don't think it warrants public comment. So Nicole, if you could pull the votes for the minutes.
Director Altman,
Recuse myself from March, but yes on April.
okay. Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Roberts,
Yes,
Director Starkey.
Yep.
Chairman Short.
And yes for me. Okay, moving on to item 6, presentation and discussion of status of the RCTA electric bus project. I know, Joe, you gave us the materials just earlier today, and we didn't get the consultants. Well, I guess we're just working off of the draft. We didn't get the consultants document. So if you could just fill us in on that, we would appreciate it.
Be glad to. Thank you, Chairman Short. Yeah, I do apologize. We begged over the weekend and we didn't get the, we asked for just a few minor changes to the document, a few corrections, and we were supposed to get it final then, and that hasn't happened. Anyway, so what you have is a draft final. It's pretty close to there's not any major changes. So this project goes back to driving the project. We covered a little bit of it at the workshop last month. But the state, the California Air Resources Board, about 20 years ago, early in my career in this business, they came out with what was then very bold and aggressive transit fleet rule. And that was to convert the state's public transit fleets from what at the time was fairly high polluting diesel engines to promote more cleaner diesel and more alternative fuels such as CNG, diesel electric hybrids, propane, that sort of thing. So that was very successful. So building upon that in what year was it? I looked this up. In 2018, they enacted a new rule. So this is like the second generation of the transit fleet rule. It's called the ICT, Innovative Clean Transit Rule. And what that means is that transit agencies, similar to the one, about 20 years prior to that, transit agencies are going to have to start purchasing cleaner fueled vehicles in the near future. So what it means for Rcta, being as we're small and rural, so we fall into the category that is a little less aggressive on this. We have to purchase at least 25% of our new buses as zero emission vehicles by 2026. And then 100% of the bus replacement buses have to be zero emission by 2029. So that's still pretty aggressive considering that's 5 years away for the first required zero emission buses and only 9 years away from having to procure nothing but zero emission buses. So, a lot of that's going to depend on how the engine industry and how the bus industry is able to mobilize and react to that, much like the original rule 20 years ago. How fast the industry will rise to the occasion will kind of determine what we can do. So Rcta was already starting to think about electric buses. We saw this rule enacted and how aggressively it was going to steer us towards that. So not having the technical expertise on staff to really take this project on, Dan and his magical grant writing, Dan wrote a grant request to the Community Transportation of America, CTAA. It's the national version of CALACT. You guys are familiar with CALACT because we often use their legislative services and their fleet procurements and stuff. So the national one, and we were successful. So Dan applied and they provided us some pro bono consulting services. And that's been going on throughout the pandemic. It sort of got lost in the craziness that was last spring, but we were awarded some free consulting services to do a plan. It started like last summer and basically ended in January. We asked for some changes in March that have yet to come through, but we do have the draft final in hand that's dated January 12th. It's the one I sent out to you guys this afternoon when it became apparent we weren't going to get the final version of it today. So the plan basically, picks up with what we knew. It was done by Hatch LTK, which is a very respected engineering firm nationally, internationally as well. So they had a pretty good team. We weren't the project managers, so we didn't directly control what the consultants did. We worked through CTAA's project manager, Charlie, on that. So, I mean, the document's good. First, they went through our routes to, they went through what Redwood Coast Transit provides to see kind of what parameters for power and for engines we're going to need. And they probably spent a little more time on that than I would like. And at the end, they didn't have enough hours left maybe to look at some of the yard infrastructure issues that are a part of the equation as well. But they did a really good job analyzing our routes to see how much range is going to be needed, and then taking a look at the current electric bus industry to see whether there's good matches for our service area and our needs. So for example, to summarize, our local routes, which is our routes 1 through 4 here in Crescent City, are deemed a pretty good fit for electric buses. We operate in a pretty flat area. They do like 80 to 100 miles a day, which is near the current range constraints of the industry, which each year get better and better. So by the time we actually deploy these, it may not even be close. We may be able to easily run all day on the local routes without worrying about bringing them back for recharging. If it happened right here tomorrow and a bus fell out of the clear blue sky and was given to us, the thought is that we may not quite be able to complete the whole service day with that bus. So it would be very close. So that's good. The bad news is the regional routes are not, at this point in time, are not appropriate for the electric buses because they don't have near enough range and battery storage. For example, our Route 20 to Rcta is about a 100-mile route, especially from the Smith River end of it. And they would require recharging, and it would have to be a fast recharge down on that end in order to come back. So at this point in time, the consultants don't recommend that we look at electric buses for the regional routes, just the locals. So that's the first 2/3 or so of the document. They analyze our schedule. And then the last half of the document, or more like the last third of it, as I said, they probably spent too many hours on that first task and didn't leave themselves quite enough on the last. But the last task was looking at our facility here at Williams Drive and our electric service in particular, and what we would need to support a pretty robust array of charging stations so that we could, if you look at our current fleet, we have 13 vehicles, and basically 5 of those, 5 or 6 are used on the regional service, leaving the other 7 or 8 used on the local service. So that larger sub fleet is the one that looks like a good match for electric buses. So we want to make sure we at least have the ability someday to charge 8, maybe 10 of these electric buses. So one of the challenges to defend the consultant plan, we had trouble getting Pacific Power engaged there for a while, and it wasn't for lack of trying. We were working through our contacts with our local utility here, and it was hard getting into a meeting. In fact, I don't know if we ever successfully got him onto one of the Zooms with the consultant team. We did eventually engage them and get them to talk to us a little bit one-on-one, and even came out and we got a technician to visit the site at the tail end of this planning work. So they touch on some of our limitations. Our current service panel and our current transformer doesn't have enough juice. We don't have enough power to go much further than what we have here today. It's not official, but the thought is we might be able to do a pilot bus, like one charger of like one overnight bus with the current system. The Pacific Power technician thought we might have enough to do that, but that's about it. So to go beyond the pilot vehicle, we're going to need to upgrade the yard. Service power, and then we'll need to do some construction and trenching to plan where we want to park the buses. The types of chargers that are out there are generally 2 categories: fast or slow. The fast chargers are more expensive, obviously. They charge quicker. They need more, what do you call it? They need higher voltage or kilowatts of power. So we can't go there right away anyway. We could do a slow charger, perhaps one slow charger for now for a pilot vehicle. But then after that, the thought is we would be a good spot for overnight charging with slow charging.
On the fast and the slow chargers, does one or the other affect the battery life of the vehicles? I mean, old battery technology, if you fast charge a battery pretty routinely, your battery's not going to last as long as slow charging. Getting it all the way kind of, I guess, topped off would be a good way to explain it.
The
Do
person
we
to
have any?
answer that question, Darren, would be Vedette Roberts. She has a electric vehicle.
Yeah, I just don't know if the technology has changed just because I'm old and don't know any better. I just, yeah.
No, as far as I know, that is the truth.
Yeah.
The lower charging is better for the batteries. The fast charging does tend to wear them out a little faster.
So is an overnight charge on a slow charger going to be good enough for us? Do we even know the answers to these questions yet, Joe?
Some of them we do, some of them we don't. It looks like the overnight slow charging would be good for our vehicles because we don't run deep into the night and we don't start super early in the morning. So most of the vehicles would have 8 or 10 hours overnight each night to charge, which is more than enough time. So it looks good for that, for overnight charging.
If I could jump in just for a minute with some financials, we do have a little bit of money to play with and apply to the upgrade at the yard. In rough terms, it's going to be maybe $30,000 to bring in the transformer and the pole. And if we assume that it's another $20,000 to do the trenching and putting out the pedestals, we do have a $50,000 grant that would do nicely for that. And we do want to put a whole lot of overnight pedestal chargers, the slow type, so that we don't mess with our batteries any more than we have to. And all of the grant applications that we've been submitting now are for the car, the vehicle, and a charger, a slow overnight charger. So we're probably okay on those.
So we are forced into one or the other. If we make a pedestal, Dan, there wouldn't be a switch we could flip and choose a slow charge over a fast charge.
No, you can slow charge on a fast charge, but one is 50,000. The fast charger is 50,000. The other one we can get, what, Joe, a couple of thousand would do it for a slow charge.
I saw more like 15, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
15.
a range of prices. Yeah.
Yeah. So but that 15,000 would not be a trickle charger. That would be one that could do a little faster charge, but not the 50,000. We really need only one of those at this point.
Very good. Thank you, Dan, for your input. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Joe. Go ahead.
No, that's good. And Dan was referring to, well, let me wrap up with the, so the latter half of the document kind of left us a bit incomplete, but it got us to the point where we were talking with the local utility, and that's really one of the next steps is to keep working with them. They came out once and gave us some ballpark estimates, and that's what Dan was citing about the $30,000 transformer upgrade, but there might be more to it than just that. So we need to flesh out all the details, but it seems doable, and Pacific Power seems interested in helping us out. Obviously, we'll consume more power from them, so they have a reason to be involved. So one of the next things is, before we kind of finish up, the project's funded by the LC Top grant initially. So we'll call that like seed funding for it. So the first year we dedicated, not the first year of LC Top, a year ago we had before the pandemic, we had a full $52,000 allocation of LC Top. And at the time, Caltrans didn't want to fund our old project anymore anyway. So they asked us how we were going to plan on complying with the ICT law. and voila, we had a new project, our electric bus project. So we dedicated the first year's allocation of 52 to that. This year, is just approved on today's consent calendar, the LC top dropped considerably to 29,552 for this year due to the pandemic where we surmise. So we go ahead and we're adding that to the 81. So that gives, or to the 52, giving us a balance of 81,000 to play with so far. That's not going to be enough to deliver the project by itself, but it's certainly enough to get started. One of the strings on the LC top money is it can't be used for planning or engineering. It's only good for implementation, in this case, like purchasing and construction. So we can't use it to do the engineering that we need to get from the end of this planning document that we all sent out today. It doesn't give me the confidence to actually deliver the project. It's like we need one more step to identify the exact service panel needs so that we don't cut ourselves short or over design the project. So we probably need to engage an engineering firm to do the final design for us of the yard. We have a sketch plan that was not in this draft, but will be in the final because we provided it to them after talking to Pacific Power. So we have a sketch plan of the yard that would replace, if you look on like page 28 of 35 of the report, that's not the optimal layout that we wanted to go with. So our sketch that we suggested to them after meeting with the electrical provider will work better. So it'll have more of the buses along the westerly side of the property and a line from the transformer, which will be a lot. The way they had them scattered here, it cost us a lot more in trenching and construction costs. So anyway, we're learning as we go. This is just an update because we know you've heard about the electric buses. We're applying for funding to put some bank together so we have the money to deliver the project eventually. Another issue financially is the electric buses are more expensive than regular buses. So the another use that is an eligible use of the LC top, we can use it to pay the difference between a regular, whether it be gasoline or diesel bus. And in this case, we use gasoline on all the local routes. So we could cover the difference between the gas cutaway and the all electric out of those funds. But they're quite a bit more expensive. So the whole 80,000 would probably be eaten up in just the difference in one bus. So hopefully that gives you some perspective. It's an exciting project. And on the other end, we could see some operating cost savings once the capital side is delivered and we're charging electric buses, especially charging in the overnight hours, you get the best electric rates. And that's key to making it pencil out for the transit agency. So eventually, once we're able to put our resources together and deliver this major capital project, once we have the electrical buses in the fleet, we could see some fuel savings that way. A lot of that it's all dependent on the rates from the local utility and the charging at night and stuff. But it's very possible. We expect to see some cost savings there. So we have applied. Dan was mentioning that we've been busy. Last time we met a month ago, we had one of the items for the low-no grant on your agenda to talk about that and get permission to apply for that, which we did. Thank you. So we don't have a determination on that grant yet, nor do we have a determination on the success or failure of the Volkswagen Settlement Fund grant that was applied for maybe a month or two before that. So both of them are out there and one or both could be funded, and that could bring some vital money to this project because that LC top money alone it's not nearly enough, but it's a start. So yeah, at that point, I just wanted to conclude with, we didn't find a solution for our regional routes. And what's that going to mean? The other popular zero emission fuel is hydrogen that is out there, but it's not nearly as widely adopted yet as battery electric buses are. But hydrogen might be, from what we've been able to learn so far, it might not have the same range limitations and power as well. So one of the issues with our regional routes is it's not only a long ways, but it's not a nice flat, like going through Iowa interstate or anything like that. The 101 between here and Rcta is very hilly, and it's a challenging operating environment. So we have to have enough power for the buses to make it up and down the hills safely. So at this point, it doesn't seem that the electric bus industry has gotten to where they need to be for that to be a viable solution for our regional services. So hopefully we're banking on either continuing to explore the possibility of hydrogen, whether it be through a partnership. This is one of the topics we talk about quite a bit with the Far North group, our friends that are comprised of most of the other transit agencies up here in the far northwest corner of California. So we're looking at that. Unfortunately, the closest, from what I understand, the closest hydrogen production facility right now is in the Sacramento area. So we're going to need to, they'll need to either be a production facility, locate closer up this way, or some sort of feasible option to truck the fuel up. So still a lot of what ifs on that.
So Joe, in these last few years since the legislation has come forward, has there been any lobbying efforts or any effort to kind of correct the situation that us that live in the mountainous areas, Del Norte, Siskiyou, Humboldt, has there been any efforts that have been pushed forward to the California legislature that has been tried? I mean, is that something that Del Norte County needs to get on the ball with and start lobbying for some sort of exemption for this? Because the technology with an electric bus and this is obviously just not there. So is that something that the city and the county need to start doing, or has that effort already been started? Or can you give me any insight on that?
Yeah, excellent question. There was a lot of pushback from the transit industry when the ICT was being formed. I remember sitting at a CTA Ledge conference in Sacramento that year. Maybe it was 17. It might have been the year before they finally enacted it. And trying to explain to the ARB all these constraints that small properties and rural, especially small rural, that combination face as far as not having enough capital money to begin with. And then these routes that require long range and power through rugged terrain and stuff. It wasn't enough to get maybe the level of relief we'd like, but I think that more relaxed tier that we are on, where we don't have to procure 100% until 2029, that was probably a small fruit that was a result of that lobbying effort to explain to them that you just can't turn on a switch and make this happen overnight, especially in the rural areas. So going back to your question, I think there's going to need to be a coalition effort from the rural counties and rural cities and transit agencies to make this problem, keep it on the radar of the Air Resources Board, because I don't believe that 2029 is enough time, especially if it ends up, if the electric bus industry can't pull the rabbit out of the hat and address their power and range issues fast enough, and then we do have to look at another fuel like hydrogen, that's going to take years. So I do think it's something that at some point we can ask this board and our cities and our board of supervisors probably to get active on the lobbying for relief, just probably for more time to comply. Yeah, I think that's probably in our future. That's a very good question.
Thank you, Joe. I guess we'll get to work on our part of that toward this project.
And I'll keep you guys updated. I belong to the CalAct Legislative Committee, and we meet every couple weeks. And they deal with a lot of, threats that emerge and different opportunities and stuff, but I'll make sure that this issue stays on their radar. They're used to me talking about the rural capital problem in general, but this is a spin-off of that. It's like, okay, we have this new mandate and it's pretty much unfunded because none of our funding sources per se have risen in order to electrify our fleets. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, I'll definitely keep you guys informed. And if there's a need for letters and some lobbying pressure, I'll let you guys know.
Thank you.
So at this point, in the preliminary budget, I think we have a line item where we put some money into the engineering that I told you, the missing link to get us from this plan as it is today, the 30-page planning document, to actually biddable set of plans to upgrade our electric service here. That's a big part of the critical path to getting this for us. So stay tuned. That might be on the horizon for this next year.
All right. Is there any other comments from the commission for Joe on his presentation about the status of our electric bus project?
I just want to say good job. I know I haven't been contributing a whole bunch, but I've been listening and I thought you did a great job preparing all that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. One thing I did forget to mention, Darren, is we might be, I mentioned it briefly, then we moved on. We might be able to do, I'd like to maybe confirm with a second meeting with Pacific Power's field technician, but it's possible we might be able to add our first electric bus before the construction project. He thought we had enough power. We could run a single dedicated circuit, maybe along the north wall of the shop to charge one small electric vehicle, which could be our pilot bus. So we actually have a grant in hand. It's probably not enough to cover the whole electric bus, but it would cover most of it. So we're kind of holding on to that grant to see if we find the right electric bus. We've been looking at some of the Ford Transit-based buses. This would be to replace, eventually, not immediately, but to replace bus 210, which is our little sedan, the little London cab looking sedan we have. It's very popular for our dial-a-ride. So if we could get a small electric pilot bus to take that role, we'd be able to then get used to working with electric. We'd have one trickle charger while we're continuing to develop the bigger picture project. So we will come back with an update on that. That could pop as soon as later this year.
I commented when I was reading the notes here that I really liked that idea of that pilot kind of program, because then it gets everybody used to this transition for a very minimal cost. I mean, it's still expensive, obviously, but at least gets us into that transition to work out all of our kinks before we jump in with something, a big, large expense. So I really kind of hope that is what works out.
Nice.
To do the one.
Yeah,
I
seems like a
totally
safe way to go.
Totally agree with Valerie on that one. Yeah, a pilot bus, like you're calling it, Joe, is definitely, I think, the smartest way to go. We got to do our best to work the kinks out before we have to jump into this both feet. Okay, Joe, is there any public comment? I'm not sure if there's even any public. Is there any public comment on our electric bus project discussion? Not seeing any hands raised. So with that, I guess we'll move on to item number 7. Joe, you already touched on the preliminary budget for 21-22, so we'll let you jump right into that.
All right, thank you, Chair Short. Dan, do you want to introduce the item?
Sure. As you know, we ran at the last meeting, we showed you where we were to date. A little over 7/12 of the year through, and we're doing very well. We're managing to stay well within the budget. So the prediction is this year is going to do fine. What the heck should we be prepared for next year? And it's just, the answer is going to be the same as every time questions have come up about the future in this past 2 years. No one knows for sure. So what we've done is worked with the best estimates that we've got about funding sources coming in, and taking a look at our expenditures and how it could continue. And it looks pretty good at this point. We're not asking you to make a motion to approve or anything like that. The printed matter leaves a little bit of something to be desired here for us that don't have perfect eyesight. But believe it or not, we don't need a action today. We want more time and information to be available in front of you. But basically, we've got it there. And if these predictions hold, specifically the one about LTF, local transportation funds, the sales tax portion of it, we expected to be damaged by 27%. And it's not coming out that way. So far, we've been a little surprised by the county's estimate of the level of sales tax. In other words, county, city, you'd be congratulated because you got a fairly healthy economy if the sales tax numbers alone are looked at. If this prediction is right, we will have some leftover money to put into the emergency fund, the contingency, and probably between $300,000 and $400,000. So we wouldn't want your action on it today or anything like that. But do take a look at it, and wanted to kind of keep you moving along the same lines we are. We don't have a lot of input about what's going to happen in the future, but things don't look too bad. Joe, you want to add to that?
Yeah, good job. Thank you, Dan. A couple of highlights I wanted to walk the group through. Yeah, Dan's exactly right. Call me a pessimist, but when I see record number projected for sales tax in the current situation, I want to make sure. But we went ahead and we dutifully put it in there. That's our budget. That's what we've been provided as initial fund estimate by the county auditor's office. That's what Tamara is rolling with, and that's what we're going to do. But we are going to continue to ask questions and make sure that that's right, because it just seems hard to believe. Because that's more than even, remember 2 years ago or so when the economy was smoking hot, and this is even way more than that. So it's just, sometimes we need to prove that. But anyway, so we've got it in there, but if indeed it turns out to not be that good, we're still okay. As Dan mentioned, the current preliminary budget will provide a lot of these cool projects we're talking about and still build the reserves by nearly 400K. So even if the projections are rosy and don't turn out to be to reflect reality, we're still in pretty good shape. Some of the things that are in the preliminary budget for you guys to think on, or tell us, no, you don't want to do it, or yes, you do want to do it. We put, like we usually do, we put $20,000 in capital for our miscellaneous projects here at the yard, which could also be used to help fund some of the electrical. It could, but it could also do other stuff. We have other needs here at the yard as well. It includes $40,000 in funds to advance the electric bus project by obtaining the engineering we need to get final design. for the yard improvements and the charging, the electrical service upgrades, charging station locations. So that'll get us to the biddable document that we need to go to construction with that. This is an interesting one, and I wanted to talk about this maybe more next month, but I want to get it on your radar. So it includes 66,000 in funds for planning and design of infrastructure improvements near the cultural center as part of what's called the Cultural Center Transit Hub project. We've been talking with Tamara, and she's programmed some funds. So within that 66 is the planning funds. I don't know if I want to call them planning funds. It's more like project development funds from DNLTC to get us the design that we need for what this project is our current transit center. So not to be mistaken with the ops facility, where I'm sitting now here at Williams Drive is where we operate from, but the cultural center is actually the hub where transfers occur, and that's where all the routes meet. So that has currently very few amenities. There's two shelters, two brand new shelters that we put in a couple months ago. But beyond that, there's very little amenities. There's no toilets there. Well, they are, but they're quite a walk. There's lighting issues there, and there's no place for a human presence for staff to be down there and being sheltered. So the premise of this project is, could we find a spot with infrastructure hookups where we could bring like a mobile ticketing kiosk and we could have staff down there during the workday? That would be a way to be more like Rcta and some of the other cities up and down the 101 corridor, where their transit centers actually have staff to where they can provide information to folks, sell them Greyhound and Amtrak tickets, perhaps even do like Greyhound freight or something like that. There's a lot of things we could do if we had a place for someone to work that would be another set of eyes and ears on the area down there. You may recall that it's been a while now, but when we did our market research study in late 2017, we found a pretty negative perception of the cultural center area from our riders as being unsafe and needing security. And remember at the time, we're like, do we hire guards? What do we got to do? We didn't really do anything. But one of the ways that we think could make a huge difference down there is if we just had staff present during the day, at least. So this is that project basically to see what we would need to do to find either dress up the current location or find another location nearby there that would be better, and then would have a spot where we could park some sort of like towable trailer of some sort to where we could operate from and have power, internet, all the things you need to dispatch from that location. So that's that project. Any questions about that one? That's one that I've been meaning to vet with you guys and get out to the light of day, but we've been so busy kind of touching on big picture things, we haven't talked about it much. I can bring it back. For example, next month we could do a whole item on it and develop it a little bit more. But I wanted to make sure you guys were aware that it's in the budget preliminary.
Hey, can I add in something on the mobile kiosk? Could that 66,000 be put down as a down payment for a lot? Like if we're to move on to N Street, like the lot Dan and I were looking at? Because then that we could move the transit hub center to that location, and then we would be right there, and they'd be able to come in and do all their buying, purchasing, and questions and everything.
I'll answer that one. Yes, it could be. One of our problems, or what Joe's talking about though, is taking a look at it. Which is better, and this will give us some leverage to work possibly with a consultant or somebody else to craft out those deals that need to come together. We did look at a lot that Fernando had found at 3.5 acres, very small, but adequate. We could fit into that. There are problems with it in that simply getting the lot doesn't get you a transit hub. You've still got maybe a $500,000 that me or somebody else would have to go after money to help build the facility there. So I think they're not incompatible, Fernando. We can take a look at what the pros and cons are of each one individually or together.
Yeah, we can have the little study, look at that option versus, 'cause I just don't see how we find the money. It would have to be something creative to buy a lot like that. Whereas if we do something on street in the public right away, it could be done a lot cheaper for
Yeah,
sure.
maybe Darren Short can find some shortcuts or some strings in the city that could help
There we
out
go.
possibly, you know.
Do you have any extra land we could use?
Okay, so that was that project. I just want you guys to know, be aware of it, whether you think it's crazy or the dumbest thing you ever heard of. At least you're aware that we're talking about it.
I would like more information, Joe. Like if
Yeah.
you want to bring that back in the next couple meetings at some point, I would love more information about what you're thinking and that sort of thing. Like, you gave a good overview, but
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Valerie. Joe, I'm curious, you and I talked via email on a standalone ticket vending machine. As ideally we would have those on the buses. I know it's a relatively expensive venture there, but are you guys kind of the opinion that having a actual person down there at Front Street would be more beneficial than having a kiosk there that was kind of a self-serve information hub? Would it be better to actually have to hire a person there and have an actual person there? I was just kind of curious about that. Also, earlier I noticed Tamara Layton in your discussion here about the budget. I noticed Tamara came off of mute. I was not sure if she wanted to make a comment or not, but I wanted to give her that opportunity as well.
Tamara, are you with us?
I see you're still on there, but she's still muted. So maybe the question was answered or there was enough information. I certainly want her to be able to chime in with her knowledge and experience. Go ahead, Vidette.
I just want to make a comment about a standalone kiosk being down there with the problems that we have with vandalism. I just want to throw that out there that there's a high possibility that kiosk will not last there very long. That's just my opinion. I just want to throw that out there that if you don't have somebody watching it or something, it's going to get vandalized or broken into.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that.
That's a good point. And Joe, you mentioned a trailer that could be moved into position. I was just thinking about one of our decommissioned buses.
Mhm.
You know, we could retrofit that to be a mobile, a place where you could go and park it down at Front Street and be the ticket purchasing center. Obviously we wouldn't be putting more miles on it, but it would obviously be an RCT centered place that people could go. I just had that thought, not sure if it's a feasible one or if it would work very well, but just throwing that out there.
It fits in the category of my suggestion, which is a caboose. I want to go find a caboose so we can put a park there.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I like that one.
I wanted to address one of Darren's questions because I think it is kind of a key criteria as we're going towards this. Would the standalone ticket vending machine kiosk of some sort be optimal versus having some sort of trailer or something with a staff person inside with heating and air conditioning and the comforts of an office, but yet on wheels? I think the big plus of this kiosk, or not the kiosk, let's say the trailer, let's call it, so we don't mix up our nomenclature. I think the plus of that's having the body down there, the staff down there to keep an eye on things and sort of provide security. Whereas if we just have a ticket vending machine down there, I tend to agree with Vedette that it could run into a vandalism situation pretty easily. But yeah, so that's one of the things is I would really love to have staff down there to keep an eye and give everyone a sense of security during the day.
What about in the cultural center?
We're exploring that option actually, Bo, with the city. That was one of the options that came up when this idea of doing the mini study that's in the budget was first talked about. Is could we lease some space inside that building? Would that meet our needs? So yeah, that's one of the options on the table, in addition to finding another outdoor location nearby.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, Tamara.
There she
Thank you.
is.
There are a couple of things. I agree with Joe that it's important that a transit employee be present, not only for security, but also to answer questions when asked. I think they could be strong encouragers and educators for the transit system. It's also important to have something that's mobile, because we're not going to be able to get funding for a system that is in the inundation zone.
Very good point. I mean, I didn't realize that. So thank you, Tamara, for your input. And that's why we love to have you here. Any other questions from the commission?
I think that was the highlights. So yeah, any other questions, we're here to answer any if you have any.
Any public comment on our discussion of the budget?
We've got some public comment here in my household. My wife reminds me that a bathroom in that area what is really needed for our drivers, and talk about a public
and a place for the person that's going to be there.
Yeah, and a place, and the cultural center, might be a way. We're just saying, let's take a look at that, and that's the next steps.
We'll have to talk to some of our city council members, maybe.
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess with that discussion, yeah, we will certainly continue that discussion about a place for that person to be centered in future meetings. With that, we'll move on from our budget discussion and move on to item number 8, adopt resolution 2020-21-12, approving the purchase order for approving purchase order 2020-21-14 to Creative Bus Sales for purchase of 2 replacement buses for Rcta local services.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Short. This item, we were here with a similar item for one bus 2 months ago. So we got that ordered. And then a grant, good news came through, a grant we've been waiting on for a couple of years, 5339 competitive federal grant that we applied for in 19. And we were notified we were getting it back in 19. It took a couple of years to actually get executed. So we got word that it's been executed. We signed off on the front page, and immediately then, we knew what we wanted from that. This particular grant allows us to purchase 2 replacement buses and to do a midlife overhaul on 2 existing buses. So the first thing we wanted to hurry up and get ordered was the 2 replacement buses. So that's what you have in front of you today, is the staff report asking permission to go ahead and order 2 buses, one of which will be another one of our champion low floors for the Crescent City local routes, including backup duty on dial ride. And the other will be a larger bus, a diesel bus for the regional fleet. They're both about this, ironically, they're about the same price at this point. They're both in the 180K range, decked out the way we want them with the equipment that we use. One bit of bad news came through just today, actually. Caltrans has, as usual, they have their hand in things. So they have the approval role of this procurement, and we were going to use the old, that was about to expire CalAct bid contract. And that's what that's what this was built upon, is the pricing that apparently just expired, and we got the paperwork set up and sent into them before the expiration, but because they hadn't approved it before the expiration, it looks like Caltrans is going to kibosh it. So that'll delay us a little bit. We can still approve the purchase order today, then we'll just have to, as CalAct's doing a new bid, so it could be a matter, the delay could be a couple months. It could be more than that. It shouldn't be much more than that. They're doing a new procurement, and then we'll be eligible to purchase off of that. So it was a technicality, but that's what Caltrans does. So yeah, so
And it looks like we just lost Joe.
That's right. I can jump in and fill it. That would
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Joe, break in anytime you come back. We are always looking for more vehicles. I think we've conveyed that need pretty heavily, and this would get us started very nicely. It's a shame about the Caltrans rejection, because we got all the papers into everybody else in a timely fashion. We got approval from Caltrans, or not Caltrans, from CalAct, to purchase off the CalAct list. So I'm sure Joe will be able to push a bid on that when we don't want to push too hard. And if we can't get that happened, yes, we would look forward to the new contract and probably an increase in prices. But what we need today is simply, does this seem to be a worthy project for you to approve and send us to help finalize it? That's what
Thank you,
we're
Dan. Is there anybody? Hey, Joe's back. Good deal.
back.
Everything
they needed to know.
Hey, Dan jumped right in, Joe. He did a great job following up. Right now we're right now we're just going to open it up to the commission for any discussion points on this purchase of the two buses. Is there any discussion or questions about this from the commission? All right. Is there any public comment on this resolution?
Sorry, I was having trouble getting my mute off. I was just wondering, have you already selected the buses that will be purchasing?
Yes, we're going to purchase buses that we working with Nick and our fleet and operations folks. We decided we want our regional fleet to be Ford F-550s, Eldorados generally, like what we ordered 3 years ago, and then the low floors for the local. So yes, they'll give us one more bus like 294 and 295, which are the F-550 Eldorados, and one more Champion low floor Ford like we already got.
Thank you, Joe. Vidette, do you have anything else? She's back on mute, so.
So I can make a motion that we adopt resolution 2020-2112, approving the purchase order of 2020-2114 to create a bus sales for purchase of 2 replacement buses for RCTA local and regional services.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Valerie. And the second from Ms. Roberts. I believe we've already asked for a public comment. So Nicole, if you could poll the vote.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Altman,
Yes.
Director Roberts,
Yes.
Director Starkey,
Yes.
Chairman Short.
Yes. All right, let's get moving, getting a couple of new buses now. Now, discussion and selection of the 2021 RCTA board meeting schedule. I believe this may have been prompted by me and my discussions about, or my question about our schedule. Bo and I are both volunteer firemen, and on Tuesday evening, we have drill. We practice on Tuesday evenings. It is not I mean, if the commission cannot agree on a different day, it's not a huge deal, but it is just a convenience item for Bo and myself. And
Darren just wants to see me shave tonight, you guys.
yes, that is part of it. See, Bo? It's
I
shame.
see. I see. And I just texted the chief and said, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make it tonight.
Right. So here we are, folks, and this is what's prompted this discussion. Joe, I want to thank you for putting together the possibilities for the different days in this for future meeting schedule or possible different days. And I just wanted to open it up to the commission to see if there was any as to a possible different day that we could meet. I agree with Joe's his analysis there in the agenda packet that, you know, I think 5:15 is probably a pretty convenient time. That's just me personally, but if anybody on the commission has anything to say in that regard or any preferences, I would appreciate hearing those.
I do not want to do 5:15 on a Friday night. Sorry. So for me, I can do the 4th Monday. I can make that work. I know that that's sometimes difficult for city council, but I think you guys do the 1st and 3rd Mondays. You're gonna have special meetings all over the place. I realize that.
Well, we do this month. Just this month, I think, right, Mr. Altman? I think it's scheduled out every Monday for this month. And then after that,
Yeah, it was all of April. It looks like all of May. Crazy. Yeah.
Is that for Monday evenings, Ray? I misunderstood.
You know what? It looks like Wednesday is a really good day for us. We hardly have anything on Wednesday. I don't know how you guys. I mean, yeah, maybe Bo's right. Maybe after May, we might have like a couple of Mondays open because we'll be past the budget stuff, you know.
and I'm sure the Board of Supervisors is about to get busy, isn't it?
No, we don't do much.
Well, and there was another piece of this that Joe mentioned in his report, and that was once we get back to face-to-face meetings, there is an issue of convenience for Joe and his travel time from Santa Rosa up to come up to the meetings, and I assumed that the Mondays were the easiest for that situation. So if Monday's not going to work out for the city council, then maybe we could look at something else. But Bo, and Ray, if you believe it's just going to be for a short period of time, maybe the Mondays will work. I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
I pulled up the city council meetings today, and you guys seem to do a lot of meetings, but after this, your budget process, it looks like you're back to two times a month. You guys
Well-
just have had a lot of meetings with Measure S and everything.
Exactly, the Measure S and then the budget, and then, but Mr. Altman, what he said, after that, I think we're gonna be back to normal. I mean, I could always check with Eric, or you guys, one of you guys could call Eric and ask him as well. Darren.
I,
I just
I-
didn't want to commit because we were told after April it was going to calm down, and it's just blown up in May. So yeah, hopefully after May it'll calm down a little bit.
so would it be feasible to stay, starting in June? Then that we would go to the, fourth Monday of the month. Would that be agreeable to you two on the city council? What do you think about that?
I say go for it. If it works, great.
Yeah, let's try it.
I mean, shake it up, shake it, and roll the dice. I'm down for that.
And if I'm the only one that's opposing Friday nights, we can, you guys can outvote me, but I
No,
really don't
hey,
like that idea.
I understand. Friday night's important. I get it. I'm not arguing with you about that.
Okay. I mean, sometimes you travel or,
I know I got a brand new trailer I can't even use.
I have not heard from Vidette. Vidette, do you have any input in this discussion at all?
It doesn't really matter to me. I'm open to whatever is convenient for everybody else.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I guess just by consensus, Joe, let's start in June. Let's look at meeting on the fourth Monday at 5:15.
Okay, that sounds
Is that-
pretty good.
Is that okay with you? And I believe that'll still work with your traveling when we get back to meeting face to face. Is that going to work okay for you?
No, that
Oh,
helps a lot. Yep, definitely.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I have a quick question about June. So that would put that meeting at the 28th because May is a long month. Is that going to affect anything that needs to get done business wise?
Good question, Bo. I did want to mention that something. So one thing that fell off today's agenda that you guys probably were planning on dealing with the general manager contract tonight. But because due to stuff out of our control, Autumn modified the schedule, gave bidders more time to submit. So now that wasn't on the docket today, obviously. It will be on our next docket, our next meeting. So one risk of if we don't meet until the end of June and there would only be then like 2 days transition period if the board were to select somebody different to be their general manager. So that seems a little awkward. So for the June meeting, we might want to do something early in the month on whatever date we can find available. Like we can do it via Zoom or whatever.
So, hey, Joe, if I could just jump in.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear enough. I did not mean to imply that we would not meet next month. We would keep the Tuesday schedule for next month and then jump to the Mondays starting June. If that's agreeable.
Next
with
month
everybody
is
else.
June.
Yes.
Karen, next month is June.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we are in the very beginning.
It's going fast, huh?
Sorry, it is going fast.
We could do a special meeting though, Joe. We really could
That's
do
true.
a special meeting and then just keep the 28th, but just do a quick special meeting to approve the contract if we needed to.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can do
Thank
that.
you, Valerie.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much the majority of 2 months going by before we met, and that was my point, is that we could definitely meet again. So, yes. Thank you for straightening me out there.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Okay, so we'll look at the fourth Monday going forward then, starting on June 28th. And we'll just expect a special meeting to deal with this GM contract in early June. Date to be determined.
All right. Thank you all for that. Appreciate your flexibility in that. Moving on our agenda, operations report, item 10.
Fernando, Mark, you guys are on.
Operations, we're holding it together. We're fully staffed currently, and we've gotten a driver that we've brought in from Visalia that's helping us out till we get some more drivers out here on the road. So as everybody knows, everybody's having a rough time bringing in employees to work, especially with them being paid to not work. So it's quite rough to get new employees on. We do have the Route 20 that is a slight deviation. It leaves at 2:30 currently, so that we could bypass the 2-hour delay. In the past, we were leaving at 3, which stuck us right at the construction, and they closed the road for 2-hour delay, and then we had to wait 2 hours. So we would leave out of here at 5, but we contacted Curry Public Transit, working with them to leave out of Lucky 7 Casino at 1:45. And they're working with us on that until the road construction slows down or they completely figure something out with that. So currently we are leaving here at 2:30 and we're getting across before they close the road. And our drivers are getting back at a decent time at 8 o'clock at night. So that's what I have for location review.
Thank you, Fernando.
Oh, one thing is we also implemented a $500 sign-on bonus to encourage new drivers coming on. And that also includes a referral bonus. So if one of the drivers refer, or any employee here refer another candidate, that they would get that as well.
Very good. Is there any comments or questions from the commission for Fernando? Anybody? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and move on with general manager's report.
I don't have too much to add. I did, as we talked ever so briefly about a month ago, we are in the last year of the base contract with First Transit for operation and maintenance. And as we expected and talked about a little bit, First Transit's put together an extension offer letter that looks pretty good. We just received it recently. So we need to talk about a couple of details, but Mark's here if you want to talk about it a little tonight. Otherwise, we'll probably have it on the agenda next month. If we were to execute the extension, then that would delay the full procurement RFP for a year, which there's some positives to that for both sides. But we also want to make sure that whatever we do, it has to be approved by Caltrans. And much like our bus order that we talked about a few minutes ago, that's not a given sometimes. So we will bring that back to you as an agenda item to talk about. If we can work through some details, there might be a recommendation to go for that. So I don't know if Mark wants to say a few words about the offer. Mark, the floor is yours if you want to talk for a minute.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so we put together a proposal that is essentially extending the term for a year with same terms and conditions. So keeping all of the rates either flat, or if we go back to pre-COVID levels, service levels, then matching what our original proposal was. So the idea is essentially to carry on the partnership status quo for an additional year. We really appreciate the partnership here. The agency's been wonderful to work with through COVID. Obviously, we've been here a long time. And I think it would make sense for both sides to kind of get through the pandemic and to come out on the other side, and then take a look at, what's the next step in terms of the partnership between the agency and the contractor. Hopefully it's us, but even if it's somebody else, in terms of growing the service, transitioning to electric buses, making sure wages are competitive. What does ridership look like after the pandemic time period? I mean, there's so many considerations that have, kind of been tabled for the last year, that I think there's a lot of unknowns to put out an RFP this year. So, we would certainly appreciate the opportunity to continue the partnership for another year. From our perspective, a competitive process is always an unknown. We'd welcome the opportunity to continue serving the agency and doing a good job. I didn't even mention the passing of Chuck and the change in leadership here, which is also another thing. It would be nice if our next general manager has a chance to settle in and get his or her feet under them leading up to the next RFP as well. So that's just kind of thoughts off the top of my head, folks.
Mark, for that. Any comments from the commission about general manager's report? Okay, we'll move on to announcements. We're getting to the end of our agenda here. Are there any announcements from the commission? Anybody have anything for the good of the order? Joe, you have anything for us, or Dan?
No, I did want to thank Mark and First Transit. Our biggest problems is wages for the drivers, and a bonus will help. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we need something to stand out, right? And, something to encourage people that, maybe they should come back to work. So hopefully it helps. And even if we get a couple of people in the door, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Bo, did you have something you wanted to say?
It's hard. It's hard to find help right now.
Yeah.
This is the reason I usually this time of the year, I'm off by 2-3 o'clock, and taking a company job, we just can't find help. So here I am doing this meeting in a pickup in my work clothes.
All right, Bo. Vidette,
Doing
did you have
good, Bo.
something?
We appreciate it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, whatever we can do to help with the employment, that would be great. And I also want to comment too on what Mark was saying about extending the contract. I think it really would be a big plus to extend it out, just because we're still in the midst of COVID and who knows what could happen. We're all thinking positively that we're headed in a good direction, but we know that can turn around all of a sudden. And that's all.
What was that, Vidette? Oh, and that was all you had to say. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bo, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just had a question. If they have been, if the drivers have been offered vaccines or anything like that?
We're encouraging all of our employees to get vaccines. We are, running health and wellness contests and recognizing folks within the company that are getting vaccinated, and if they want to, they're getting a picture in our newsletter, and that's going out to everybody in the company, and they're getting a small gift card, I think, to recognize that they did it. We're also will pay people for the time that they go down to get their vaccine. From a region perspective, my team is tracking all of the locations and where we're at. I think we're at about 33% right now here in Crescent City. But I'm talking to folks here today. Many of them are on their way to get their first vaccination. So it's certainly something we're encouraging, but of course, being mindful not to violate any privacy laws or HIPAA laws surrounding people's right to choose on that one. Yeah,
I agree with you. Their right to choose is pretty important. To each their own on it. I was a little leery about it as well. I got mine, I was hesitant, but did. So, that's encouraging to hear. Thank you.
All right, with that, we've reached the end of our agenda. I just wanted to point out that Joe obviously has a crystal ball somewhere because he wrote here on the agenda that our next RCTA board meeting will be on Monday, June 28th at 5:15.
Pure luck.
So if there's nothing else from the group, then we'll adjourn this meeting and see you all again at the end of June or possibly before if we need a special meeting and that's likely so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dan. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night,
Bye.
all.
Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, you guys.
I don't know what end.